Last week we explored up the Guadiana River from the Atlantic Ocean, starting with a medieval festival at Castromarine Castle, heading up through Alcotin where we discovered 3 castles, and onto the magnificent Mertla as you can see below. Now here's a quick taste of what we'll be passing through today. So I found myself on the road from Mertla to Serpa, and the weather looks fine out the window, but there were wild winds and heavy rain squalls coming down. Luckily, I sheltered under the entrance of the castle in Serpa, but to my consternation, the castle was closed. Apparently, many castles are closed on Monday, so this was going to be a drone type of day. Serpa was originally fortified by the Romans to protect the road going from Beja, or what is known as Pax Julia in those days, to southern Hispania. Now Rome actually divided the Iberian Peninsula into 2 parts, and they began to use the names Hispania Citerior and Hispania Ulterior for near and far Hispania. At the time, Hispania was made up of 3 Roman provinces, Hispania Baetica, Hispania Tarraconensis, and Hispania Lusitania. In 700 AD, when the Moors invaded, they further fortified Serpa, and it was reconstructed in 1295 after Serpa's first charter from Dom Dinis I. The Christians took advantage of the rammed earth walls left over from the Moors, and in 1320 the Order of Avis donated funds to continue renovations. Good morning. Well, I just arrived at the 4th castle on this big trip up to Alentejo, and it's closed, and it's pouring with rain, howling with wind, and it's just weird, but it is quite impressive. Check this. This is a pretty crazy day, man. It's pouring with rain, and then it's sunning up, and then it's cold, and it's just bizarre. But it actually isn't cold. It's still pretty warm. So, all right, I'm heading over to Mura now. So, cheers, Serpa. We'll see you later. So this trip is quite a good one if you want to explore the Alentejo area. As you can see, we're going north, and we were following the Guadiana River in the beginning, but now the Guadiana has veered away from the border, and we're heading up to Mora, and then afterwards we're going to go up to Nodar, which is right in that sort of eastern section. But hey, it's exciting because it's a beautiful area. It really is. And driving through this area is so rustic. There's hardly any people about. It's one of the least densely populated areas of Portugal. This was an atalaya, or a watchtower, that I stopped at before Mora, because Mora was pouring with rain. It was really, really difficult to get around and to film. So I thought, okay, I'll just go out to this watchtower quickly, take a little bit of that, and then see if I can get some views of Mora. But I couldn't. Oh man, look at this, is crazy. I just caught out in the middle of a bloody squall. This weather's driving me nuts. I'm just not used to it. It's like, what happened to summer? A few minutes later, the sun was shining and I was back in Mora, which is amazing. But now, Mora's got quite an interesting history, because back in 1166 was when it all happened. So the Christians took Mora from the Moors, and then immediately the Muslim forces retook Mora, and then before the end of the year the Christians had retaken it back. The Christians held it until 1190, when during the Great Almohad Offensive, Mora was taken by Muslim forces under the command of Abu Yusuf Yaqub al-Mansur. That's quite a name. And then in 1217 Mora was retaken by Christian forces once again, and that's when it became Christian forever, until this day. And Afonso II of Portugal granted Mora a charter to help develop the area and encourage settlement. An interesting thing is that one of the most popular brands of agua com gás, or carbonated water, sparkling water in Portugal, is called Agua Castelo. And that was originally found in the waters just below the castle. And Agua Castelo is actually based just outside Mora to this day. So that's quite an interesting fact. Such a quaint little town. I had to go down after being up in the ramparts and just explore a little bit of the town. So I'm going to go for a little stroll. Alright, well that's Mora, and now we're heading off to Nodar, which is another, Normally these castles are surrounded by villages, and that's how they've came to be. But this one is special because it's in the middle of nowhere, and I may even camp the night here, which would be quite fun. So I'm going to go check it out. It's a long way to go. It's like right off the beaten path, and it's right on the border with Spain. So it's going to be an interesting one, and it's going to be different. And I'm looking for, hopefully we'll be there for sunset. The weather holds up. I'm excited. Now this really was a proper 10-kilometer drive along dirt road, and it wasn't just easy dirt road, it was like rough dirt road. So if you want to go there, just be committed. But this view was all worth it when I arrived and saw this castle just rising out of nowhere. It's fantastic. Over the centuries, Nudar Castle changed hands several times as Portugal and Spain vied for control of the region. It saw periods of conflict and was the site of numerous battles and skirmishes. But like many medieval fortifications, Nudar Castle began to decline in importance as the nature of warfare changed. With the advent of firearms and more modern military technology, castles like Nudar became less effective as defensive structures. As a result, the castle gradually fell into disrepair and was abandoned. But the castle is situated in an isolated rural landscape on the extreme western edge of the Herdade de Coitadinha, implanted on a schist platform crowning a 275-meter hilltop. The hill lies between the Rio Ardila and the Ribeira de Murtega, some 2 kilometers from their confluence, at just 500 meters from the Spanish border. Along an ancient connection between Beja and Jerez de los Caballeros, one of the more important roadways in Western antiquity. Within the walls of the ancient village of Nudar is the church of Nossa Senhora de Desterro, Our Lady of Exile, and about 200 meters from the castle is the Atalaya de Força. The rectangular keep tower is 17.5 meters tall with 2 doors, one on the ground floor and another on the second floor of the northwest wall, accessed by an exterior staircase. Well, that was really irritating. I mean, this is Monday, and apparently all castles in Portugal are closed on Monday. So I haven't managed to get into a couple of castles today, but drove 10 kilometers all the way along this dirt road and eventually got here, but it was beautiful. It's an absolutely stunning spot. I can't believe how these guys made this in the middle of nowhere. It's a massive castle as well, really is big. Now I've got to head off to Mourão. So let's see if we can make it. It's like about 6:30 now. Sunset's about 8. Then I've got about an hour and a bit to drive. So let's see if I can make it. So as you can see, I made it just in time for the setting sun to illuminate the ravelins. Now there's a lot of terminology when it comes to castles, and I'd really like to try and go into this in the next video as we go through a little bit further north through the Alentejo, checking out a whole bunch of castles tomorrow. But ravelins are essentially these triangular style fortifications on the outworks that you can see beautifully illuminated right here. Excellent example of it. Little is actually known about the early occupation of this site, but during the midst of the Christian reconquest of the Iberian Peninsula, the area surrounding the castle was the scene of a few clashes between Muslims and Christians. In 1223, Sancho II of Portugal donated to the Order of St. John of Jerusalem, or the Knights Hospitaller, the area around the castle, because the castle was only built in 1226, as far as we recall. Obviously, there was a fortified area around there, but it was reconstructed completely in 1226, when the first charter was granted to Mourão. During the 1383 to 1385 interregnum crisis, the village suffered one attack and took refuge in the castle. It was relieved by the forces of the Order of Avige. So, 4 castles done in one day. I wasn't quite finished yet though. I had to go and forage for food, so I headed into Mourão and looked for a couple of places to eat. There was one spot which had an amazing bochechas de porco, which is pork cheeks, and it was really fantastic. So much food and hardly any money at all. It was very cheap. And then I settled down for another night in the car, which is actually, I got a fantastic night's rest. Really, somebody was in the comments worried about my chiropractor. And no, it's actually very comfortable in my car. But I think tomorrow night I'm going to have to be able to go and get a hotel or something. But yeah, so next week we're going to change it up and go for a stand-up paddle week, or a few days actually, in Ericeira, and I'll tell you all about Ericeira. But as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'd really appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button, because it does help so much. Helps the algorithm and it gets the word spread, and then it helps this channel to grow, because we've been growing a little bit slowly lately, man. It'd be great if you could spread the word. So thanks so much, and I'll see you next week.
AlgarveAddicts.com